right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the session. It's wonderful to see you. I'm Karen Daniel. I'm the Vice President of Programs at Youth Service America, and I'm going to let my colleagues Nikki and Katie introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nikki Liles. I am, as you can see there, the Director of Partnerships with Youth Service America. So happy to be with you today.
Hey, everyone. Katie Reusch. I am Nikki's co-director of partnerships. Nikki focuses on the organization side, and I am the youth side person, and excited to be chatting with you this afternoon.
And one quick housekeeping note, we welcome you to turn on your camera. We'd love to see your faces. Of course, not required, but if you'd like to do that, we would love to have you. We are here today to tell you a little bit about Global Youth Service Day, which is the signature program of our organization, Youth Service America. We have been holding Global Youth Service Day for, this will be our 35th annual event, as a way to really highlight the great things that young people are doing in their communities all year round. The event started as National Youth Service Day in the US, and then really grew to take on projects in other countries, and that really happened thanks to young people in other countries that we were visiting who said, can't we do something like National Youth Service Day in our country? And we said, we would love you to, but we don't necessarily have translated resources and all of those good things. And they said, we'll help. And so all of this to say that young people really helped us to lift this off the ground and make it a time when young people all over the world were celebrating in their countries. If you go to the next slide. We're on a mission at YSA to tell you a little bit about us, to make working together for the common good, the common expectation and experience of all young people. When we talk about young people at YSA, we typically are talking about youth ages 5 to 25. We know that different organizations in different countries define that differently. We don't want to exclude anyone younger than 5 or anyone older than 25, but that's sort of the age range that we focus on. And we have really come to believe strongly at YSA that there's really a triple benefit to youth service and volunteering. Then it benefits the youth volunteers themselves. It benefits the communities where they serve and the issues that they serve around. And it benefits the democracy when you have youth as engaged citizens. So we look at all three of those factors in terms of the resources that we make available to youth and the adults that support them. As I said, we really focus on youth ages 5 to 25, and there's a lot in this sentence. I like to say that it's a powerful sentence that includes a lot of the values that we look at. We really are looking to increase the number of young people certainly serving, but also the diversity of young people. It's very important to us that all young people are invited to improve their communities, and we know that not all young people are asked at the same rate as others. So we work really hard to make sure that all young people are asked, and we see Global Youth Service Day and other big kind of national and international days of service as a great on-ramp for youth that are maybe serving for the first time to really get their feet wet and become interested in more ongoing year-round service. The last part of that sentence that's also really important is the part about substantive roles. We've probably all seen projects, we've probably all been involved in projects where we've been told what service to do without much input on what we'll be doing. And that's oftentimes not very motivating and could actually be kind of dismotivating for young people in terms of wanting to make this a part of their lives. And so we really put a lot of emphasis on having youth in the driver's seat from beginning to end in terms of determining what issue they'd like to work on, how they'll be addressing that issue through a service project, and then leading it all the way through. We know that adults are critical coaches and logistic enablers and many things that they need to do, but we really do look to put young people in the center. To the next slide. A bit about how we think about youth service and why it's important. First of all, from a numbers perspective, around the world, we know that youth under age 25 make up about a third of the world's population, about a third of the population in the US and about half of the world's population. So we simply just can't leave that population out of the decision-making table, out of the group of people that want to improve things. So the simplest reason is because of the numbers. More deeply than that, we know that involvement in substantive volunteering and leadership helps young people to develop a lot of critical skills that they need in school to succeed in workforce and career readiness, and that can really help them throughout their lives. We know that volunteering has critical benefits around health, both physical health and mental health, and that's really been documented and is being looked at in new ways all the time. And finally, we know that young people are uniquely suited to solve problems through service in terms of being willing to look at creative solutions or taking some risks at trying new things that maybe adults are less willing to do. So we always love seeing the really unique and creative strategies that young people come up with to solve really difficult problems in their communities. Next slide. We look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals as a framework for how we encourage youth to organize projects. We do not focus on any particular issue that we tell young people they should focus on. We really want young people to look at what the needs are in their communities, what they're passionate about and kind of personally interested in, and proceed accordingly. That said, we love having the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework because, first of all, they're broad enough to really not leave anybody out that wants to be involved in a particular issue, but they also really raise the gravitas, the importance of this work, recognizing that young people around the world are addressing these key issues in different ways, perhaps, and in ways that are appropriate in their communities, but recognizing that these problems are critical and they're being solved around the world is a really powerful force. Next slide. That is kind of the end of our introductory piece. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Katie, to tell you a little bit about some of the resources that we make available to people for planning projects.
Thanks, Karen. So we know that when you are planning a project, we know that there are so many individual pieces that go into making a service project, whether it be direct service, advocacy, awareness, or philanthropy, that there are so many moving pieces, whether it's things like we want to make sure that we are reaching out to and engaging the right group of volunteers. We want to make sure that we have the necessary resources available. So we wanted to put together some project planning toolkits, tip sheets, things that will help you lead a successful project. So we do offer a number of different resources in both toolkit and video form. We know some people have different learning styles, and we wanted to make sure that we are able to adapt for that. For this group, some of the ones that we pulled include our Youth Guide to the Global Goals. This is actually one of my favorite toolkits. What it does is it breaks down each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals into bite-sized pieces and gives you examples of different types of service projects that can be done as they pertain to each of the 17 goals. Within those 17 goals, there are 169 targets and measures that the UN is working towards. So this kind of makes the goals and service in relation to the goals a little bit more digestible. At the end, there's also a really great activity where we encourage youth leaders to look at the goals, which ones they are most passionate about, and how they can bring those goals into their community. We also have some issue and capacity specific toolkits in case your youth leaders are interested in a particular issue, whether it be the environment, hunger, STEM, teen driver safety. I know there are so many others that I can't think of right now. But then we also have capacity-specific toolkits. So if you are looking for support for a specific area of the service project, mobilizing volunteers, engaging elected officials, maybe you need some additional support when it comes to fundraising or engaging partners in your community to help make your project possible. We have toolkits and resources for that. And one of the cool things is because we're focused on youth leadership and youth voice, some of our resources are actually written with the support of or completely by or focusing on examples of projects from youth that we've worked with. And then lastly is our Youth Changing the World toolkit. One of the really nice things about this, it helps you plan a project really from beginning to end. And not only is it available in English, but we have it available in the 6 UN languages, as well as in Bengali and Italian. We want to make sure that these resources are accessible. So kind of that was really our big step in that direction. And if for some reason we find that youth are looking for this particular resource in other languages, it's always something that we are open to expanding, because we know youth service isn't narrowed down to one specific country or geographic region. And then just to show you a few of the resources, we have our mobilizing volunteers and some of the different resources and worksheets that are within that toolkit. We have project examples and how-tos in case there are projects that you have done that others are interested in replicating. It goes through kind of the project goals, the project descriptions, exactly what types of volunteers might be needed for the project, what are some organizations or businesses or leaders in the community that can help with the project as well. And then some of our Youth Changing the World toolkits. Again, goes through the entire project planning process from the beginning to the end. And when I say beginning to end, we kind of can break it down into a couple of different, we can do it as a 1, 2, 3, the before, during, and after, or we can look at it through the typical IPARDC process, where we're investigating, we're preparing and planning, we're acting and carrying out the project. We reflect both at the end of the project, but also throughout. And then we demonstrate and celebrate our results and our work at the tail end of the project, as well as think about how we can sustain our work for longevity and future replication. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nikki. We've used the term leading ASAP, and I will hand off the mic so she can explain a little bit more about this.
And Katie, I just wanted to jump in and add a quick note that all of these resources are available at no charge on our website, and we'll make sure that you have the address for that website at the end of this presentation.
Thank you, Karen, for adding that, and thank you, Katie. So yeah, what does it mean to lead ASAP? So to this point, we've gotten the background information about YSA. You shared a number of the resources that are available to you all and to the young people that you engage with. When we talk about lead ASAP, it really has two meanings. There's this idea that young people are ready now, that they don't have to wait to be engaged, to be the organizers, coordinators in their community, taking charge and solving those challenges and issues that they see. And so in addition to that, we also look at lead ASAP in terms of 4 action strategies. And you see that on the screen there: awareness, service, advocacy, philanthropy. These are 4 areas or 4 strategies that young people can use to engage in the community, to be of service in their community. And as they are solving their local issues, we also acknowledge and uplift that they are also having impact globally. Next slide, Katie. So how do we get from point A to point B? We're talking about lead ASAP. We want to make sure that young people can engage in that way. Karen shared earlier that a lot of times there are young people who don't get the opportunity to serve, that they're not asked to serve. People might say, oh, they're not interested in doing that, or whatever the case may be. So how are we engaging young people in service? To that point, we have Spark, Fire, ASAP. We can get to ASAP, those 4 action strategies that young people are engaging through, by sparking fire. And no, we do not mean fire in the literal sense, but I'll dive into that more in a second here. Next slide, Katie. So we know that young people have interests. They have sparks, areas that they are already interested or engaged in, be that sports, reading, learning, technology, and science. So these are avenues by which they can get further engaged in their community. And we know that if we are engaging them in the community, as Karen was talking about earlier, there's kind of this triple benefit that's going on. And one of those benefits is that young people, by engaging through their sparks, those 4 action strategies, they are developing skills, very critical 21st century skills that's important to their future, right? So if they're going on to career or college, whatever that is, being able to collaborate with one another, to communicate effectively, having that creativity, solving problems, the critical thinking skills, all of those are crucial and important. There are things that employers are looking for as they are making decisions about who they are hiring. They are skills that are important as universities and colleges are looking at who they are admitting to their institutions. So it's really important to think about that benefit is part of why we need to make sure we are engaging even more young people, especially diversifying those young people who have access to participate. Next slide, please, Katie. All right, so we have the spark. So let's get started with young people. They have those interests. Let's engage through that spark, starting that flame so they can get engaged. The next slide there, Katie. This is kind of an expanded list of interest areas. It's by no means all inclusive. You all know, you engage with young people, or you might be a young person yourself. There are different areas by which you're interested in. Looking through this list, I don't know if technology is really on here, but getting more into kind of the gaming systems and developing systems in the community, that's something to certainly think about as well. Next slide, please, Katie.
It's coming. My computer's running a little slow. There we go.
Thank you. So we're sparking fire. We're starting with that interest area, letting that kind of ignite and move them along the pathway. They're getting engaged in a cause. So as we were talking about those UN global goals earlier, and how young people can make an impact in their community, which then has an impact globally, these are some of those specific areas that young people can engage in through those sparks or interests. So for example, if you have a young person who is interested in reading, they're really excited about that. They want other young people to have books and be able to read and share that excitement as well. They might want to go out in their community and create one of those, the little libraries in the community, and help get book donations to have in those libraries so that young people have access to those things. So they're having direct impact through literacy, education, making sure that there's access in that space. Thank you, Katie. And so this kind of goes back to that slide at the beginning of the section, the 4 action strategies: awareness, service, advocacy, philanthropy. Just like that example that I just got of that young person being interested in reading, and that having an impact ultimately on literacy with other young people, they are engaging in a direct service. And you can actually take that further. If they're interested in literacy and wanting more books in schools, maybe they're getting engaged in the advocacy piece if they are writing letters to elected officials, seeking bills to make sure that there is additional funding even, right, for books in schools. So there are many different ways that young people can take that interest and move it along and be of service in their community. We just need to make sure that we're giving them space and opportunity to do so. And that's one of the things that we have highlighted so far, and we're going to continue to highlight today, making sure that young people have a seat at the table, that they are participating as leaders in the community, that we have their perspective, and really solving those challenges. And I got ahead of myself, but this sums it up. that spark, fire, those action strategies in developing that project.
So we wanted to give you a couple examples of youth who are using their passions and their strengths to make a difference in their community. Because we work with youth all over the world, and because we know we have a pretty diverse group of participants today, we wanted to share a few of our international examples. So I'm going to start off with Brianna. She currently lives in Ontario, Canada, the capital of Canada. And so she is really passionate about ending poverty and ensuring that people have access to quality education. So one of the things that Brianna noticed was really that at the height and in the early days of the pandemic, a lot of youth were out of school, and a lot of people were having to step away from their jobs because businesses were closed down. So a lot of the necessities that they would normally be able to purchase weren't available. So what she did is she actually started a group called Gifts That Smile, which provides much needed hygiene items and other kind of necessities to adults and youth across all of the Canadian provinces. Because youth were out of school and she had a particular love of nature, she actually also created what she called Go Wild Nature Kits, where these kits had different types of science experiments, where these experiments had some type of connection to nature, so youth could learn about the world around them in a fun and engaging way. And in the past, I would say the first year and a half of her project, she was able to impact at least 500 youth all across Canada, from East Coast to West Coast and everywhere in between. Another example is Alina Choi. She is from Seoul, South Korea. And in Seoul, one thing that she noticed is when anybody is not feeling well, they wear a mask. Whereas in the US, especially in the early days of the pandemic, it was something that was a very foreign concept to many of us. So she actually knew a bunch of people across Korea that were making these masks. So she and a few of her friends that she was going to school with started a group called Mariposa Masks. And what they did is they did fundraisers and worked with these businesses to raise over $15,000 and distribute about 7,500 masks to some of the people most in need. Hospitals, senior centers, areas where people may be at higher risk but don't have access to masks or other personal protective equipment. John Mark is a big fan of the Sustainable Development Goals. When we were talking with him, he was saying that it's really interesting to see how interconnected every single one of those 17 Sustainable Development Goals is. And he really wanted to ensure that youth had a platform through which they could make their voices heard, whether they are passionate about Goal 1, which is no poverty, Goal 13, climate change, Goal 10, reducing inequality, or any of the other Sustainable Development Goals. So he turned to social media and technology to craft a project, and he launched an online Facebook youth forum called the Online SDG Youth Action Forum, where youth have opportunities to share their thoughts, their passions, their concerns about things pertaining to the Sustainable Development Goals. They are able to share their successes around service activities, whether it's direct service or one of the other 3 ASAP strategies that Nikki highlighted. And in total, he's been able to engage over 27,000 passionate youth changemakers who are really focused on ensuring that we're able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, if not earlier. And then the last everyday young hero and youth changemaker that we want to feature, her name is Reedy, and she is based in India. Now in India, one of the challenges as a young woman that Reedy has seen is the stigma around menstrual hygiene and periods. And in 2013, India actually put together a program that would provide hygiene items for girls who were attending state-funded schools. Now, in 2021, Reedy noticed that that program was coming to an end, and there was really no clear intent to continue or revitalize that program. So what she did is she took action into her own hands and started thinking about what can we do to ensure that young women have access to menstrual hygiene products. Well, she began making reusable hygiene products and teaching others how to make the same products. She also noticed that hygiene around this area was also something that wasn't really well taught. So she actually started traveling to schools where she would provide students with reusable products. She would teach them about proper hygiene, proper disposal techniques. And she was also working with women entrepreneurs, teaching them how to make these reusable items and how they can then sell them to help them economically and financially, so that they were able to be independent of say their families or their husbands or what have you. So really her project is incredibly multifaceted, going back to the idea that across all those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, there are connections regardless of which Sustainable Development Goal is closest to one's heart. All right, so I know we gave a lot of examples, but now we want to kind of give you the chance to think about your sparks, your fires, and the young people that you work with. Nikki, I will pass the mic off to you.
Thank you. Yes. And this is, so we're going to do this in a couple different steps. So one, I'm going to explain the activity here. You're going to look at the Jamboard that you'll be working on, because we are going to break you all up into groups. So you can work together to create your young person here and the sparks and so forth. So what you will be doing when you get into your group, you'll have the image to your right with the name, spark, fire, action strategies listed. So you don't actually have to draw a picture because the picture will be there. But if you want to add something to your picture, you certainly can do that. So while you are in the group, you're going to identify a spark for the young person, the area of interest, their fire or cause, what they're interested in engaging through. So you'll see the list of global goals when you get to the Jamboard as well. And then we're asking that you select one action strategy for that young person. And with that, come up with a project idea using those different things, the spark, the fire, the action strategy. And do please name your person too. So there will be opportunity for the different groups to share about the young person that they created. And do you have the Jamboard that you could share, Katie? And if
I do. Let me go ahead and change my screen. So I just dropped the link to the Jamboard in the chat. But here's what you will see when you follow that link, and I will let Nikki.
Yes, and so this is that first page. So again, you'll have access to the global goals. You'll see the different interest areas or sparks on the screen as well. And then it's just that same slide that you just saw from the PowerPoint presentation at the top. And so when you are divided into groups, we are asking that you go to the slide that corresponds with your group number. In the far left corner, you see group 1. And so they are all numbered as you go through the deck. And at the very top, thank you, Katie, for directing us there. At the top, there is a little box with arrows on each side. That is how you move in between the different slides or boards in the Jamboard. And then on the left, you will see a lot of different options for you. So if you want to use a sticky note to put the name of your person or identify the spire or the spark, you can do that. And there should be an area to actually drop your cursor and write text as well. So there's many different ways that you can add things. Feel free to explore that little panel because there's ways to drop images and all kinds of stuff in there if you should have time to do so. So there will be about 10 minutes for this activity. Are there any questions before we break you up? And I see Amina, did you just raise your hand? Feel free to come off mute and ask your question.
So I'm looking at the Jamboard and it says view only. Are we going to change that or is that just for the
I'm going to change that. I thought I changed it earlier, but apparently not.
Got it right now, Nikki. I just saw that in the chat as well. Is that link working now? Okay.
Because the setting I'm looking at has anyone with the link should be able to edit. So if you guys have any problems, please let us know. And you might have used the breakout rooms before, so you know once you're in the room, if you have any challenges, you can message the host and we can help you out and go in between the rooms as well. Any other questions?
We're going to give you about 10 minutes to work in your group. And if you would pick somebody in the group to share once you're done, that would be great.
All right, here we go. We'll open up the rooms. Carmen, is there any way I'm going to pause our recording.
All right. Thank you all for participating in that activity. I am super excited to meet these young people you have created and learn about their fire and spark and their action strategy and what their project is. So which group wants to go first? And please don't be shy.
Hi, my name is Justin.
Hi, Justin.
Hey, Justin. Which group number were you?
Group 1.
All right. You want to tell us about your young person that you created?
Her name, so yes.
Yes,
What's our young person's name?
Lily.
Okay, great. And then that says fire. What's our fire? Go ahead.
Resolve community issues through youth influencing others.
Good.
Desire
Our spark.
for
Advocating.
advocating for different people in her community.
And then our action strategy is
Advocacy.
Nice. I'm so happy to meet Lily. And does Lily have a project yet, or she's still working on her project?
We have a project.
We have a project.
All right.
I don't know if someone else from the group wants to talk. Amina or Carla or Ms. Wilson. Okay, I think Amina might be delayed. Thank you guys. You want to say thank you?
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll explain the project a little bit more. So we came up with having Lily create a club at her school for advocating for change by implementing change through an advocacy club at her school. So they'll plan the community service opportunities and then implement them throughout her school by talking to different people.
Nice. Thank you, Group 1, for presenting Lily to us. Who would like to go next? Or Group 2 is in the natural next order. So if we don't have anyone is interested in jumping right in, we can just go in order. Okay, is there a representative from group 2?
Sure, I'll talk. We were group 2. We were still working through it when we got cut off. So we did not get a name in yet. We'll call this will be name.
Okay.
They, them, theirs. So the fire, we had a member that's doing the teen safety driving, so we kind of picked onto that. And our spark then was safety, kind of the overarching was more like safety, and especially with youth and teens. And the fire then was reducing this kind of need to check phones and have phones on all the time. And our action strategy was kind of between, I was initially thinking advocacy, but it's also really an awareness of the it can wait. So the advocacy would be the it can wait platform to share, but also awareness by sharing information and statistics, as well as what you can do, such as setting your phone into driving mode, and sharing personal stories from survivors that have been impacted by it.
That's awesome. You guys really hit all the different things there. I love the idea of creating a campaign. So this reminds me too, for anyone who's interested, I do believe on the YSA site, we actually have a toolkit around driver safety. So Karen or Katie, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure we have a toolkit there.
Yeah, it was created, I believe, in partnership with State Farm. It's focused on teen driver safety. We actually did a fellow program in India a few years ago, focused on teen driver safety and doing community assessments.
Thank you for sharing that, Katie. And thank you to group 2. Group 3.
I can share for group 3.
Right, thank you, Isabel.
So our person was named Kid, a very ingenious decision. So the fire was education equity, specifically for online education, because it's received such a plethora of negative stereotypes, specifically over the COVID pandemic. And the spark was writing. So our action strategy was laid out as follows. We would create an online forum for the students of online school to sort of share their story, as well as through social media. And we would share blog posts, resources for online students, specifically helping with their education and dealing with personal circumstances, and also advocating for better online education experiences. And we're also hoping to partner with TEDx to develop a school program for us to be able to talk with other peers and teachers and share our experiences.
Thank you. And I love the idea of partnering with TEDx and a young person having literally the stage to speak and have their say. So that's awesome. All right, thank you to group 3. Group 4.
Hi, I'll jump in and save Louise some embarrassment. So I couldn't figure out how to write it, so I was using the pen, and so that's why it looks a little messy. I had Louise in my group, and I had seen him in another session earlier, and I was very excited that he was in my room. So we started talking about some things that he had talked about at the other session. So I got a little sidetracked, but we had looked at, he has some students in with him, so we were talking with them about some of their strengths, and they said networking, that they're really good with social media, and a cause that they really felt strongly about was the clean water. And then looking at the different strategies, I actually used the ASAP in my class, in my global studies class, so I'm familiar with YSA, and this is an incredible, just really easy strategy to use with them, or the acronym to use, and it works great for them to really narrow down how they're going to help and go about, and really where their interests lie and where their strengths lie. So the quieter students may just want to do where they're raising awareness by writing a brochure, not necessarily making presentations about it, or if they're just wanting to work at an organization doing the service part. So as far as the clean water, Louise had looked at maybe partnering with Rotary to build a a well overseas. So looking at probably doing some
I can go into I can go more into that.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you would want to jump in, Louise.
Yeah, so Rotary, we have international projects that we do. So our club is looking at an international project, and one of the things that we've seen out there is Wells for Africa, where you fundraise, right? It takes about $6,000 to build a well. So there's Rotaries in Africa that would take that that donation from the foundation and build a well in your club's name, and they usually go to communities in Africa that don't have access to well water, that use water from rivers or other access points that aren't clean or safe unless they boil. So the well water is just another avenue for these communities to be able to have access to clean water.
Awesome. Well,
So,
and let me say this is, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Was there something else you were going to say? Okay.
no, and
well,
it's
first,
just little projects that we're looking at to help out, right? Since it's international, I want to teach these kids. There's a lot more than just outside of your front door, right? The needs go beyond. So we want to be able to assist others, even though they're on the other side of the world.
yeah, and really building that sense of connectedness,
Yes.
which is so important, especially now. And Laura, I wanted to mention too, so I appreciate your efforts. I know we started by talking about writing on the screen, so I appreciate you trying to do that. And one of the things that we didn't mention as we were going through, but young people, of course, having their different interest areas and whatnot. If we are working with groups of young people and they're doing projects together, if they're working in school, another way to kind of look at how they can engage in their interest areas or strengths is also looking at, well, who is better at writing a proposal? Who's better at doing the research component? Who is your speaker who's going to do your social outreach or doing your social media? So we know that young people have strengths in different areas, and we can split them up, or they can split themselves up to work on projects together, depending on where their strengths lie. So that's just another way to think about young people and the strengths and how they can have impact.
Thank you.
And was that the last group, Katie? Which
I think so. Julie, did we have 4 groups or 5 groups?
that was the last one, at least that was written on. So
We had 4 groups. We had 4 groups.
Great. Just want to make sure that we weren't leaving anyone out there. So thank you all again for participating in that activity, and I hope you enjoyed that. Anything else that you would add? Because I saw a message, Katie, and I want to make sure that we.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest is, especially so this is a great activity to do with your youth. If you're doing it in a classroom, like Nikki mentioned, and you have, you really want to encourage youth to think about what leadership roles they can play. Maybe it's something along the lines of selecting one specific fire and then kind of allocating or letting students decide their roles based on the issue topic. Little bit easier, one less thing that needs to be coordinated amongst however many youth or students that you're working with.
Thank you, Katie.
I would also add that it's just really fun to have people talk about their sparks. When we do this training in person, we always have people kind of pair up and share their sparks to start the activity. It's a little bit harder to do that online, but we just find that when people talk about their sparks, they smile because it's, something they love to do. And research shows that most young people can tell you what their spark is, but they also say that not a lot of adults in their life know what their spark is and kind of help them to develop it and support it. So we find that that's really powerful for young people. And then setting that in a context of service really sets them up for doing something fun and meaningful in a way that hopefully will continue throughout their life.
Great point, Karen. Thank you. And so you guys have gone through the activity. What we don't want to do is leave out explaining what we see the adult role or the adult champion's role in all of this, how we see that playing out. So we've said this a number of times, but it's really important that you have opportunity to lead, to be the coordinators, the organizers, identifying issues in the community and really taking action in that space. But again, we know that there's a role for adults to play in that as well. We see the adult champions being a co-pilot, right? So if we think about a plane and the pilot who is navigating the plane, the co-pilot is there to provide support. They are helping to do that navigation, helping to make sure that plane stays in the air and gets to where it needs to go. And so that is the adult champion's role. If you can go to the next slide, please, Katie. So again, making sure that we are centering youth voice and youth leadership and what's going on, that they are identifying those problems and being engaged every step of the way through project development is really important, that adults make sure that that happens, right? That we're centering their voice. They can be there to provide issue-specific resources, perhaps to suggest certain partners that young people work with, but ultimately the young people who are coordinating, who are leading, they are making kind of the final decisions in terms of the direction that they want to go. That adult champion is there to make sure that there's meaningful reflection throughout the process. So as they go through those different areas, doing the research, planning their project and whatnot, we want to make sure that we are reflecting throughout, that we are looking for those areas of continuous improvement as we're going through as well, making sure that young people really understand the impact that they are making on their community. Do they know how many families that they've touched by the work that they have done? How are they making impact is really critical that they understand that piece as well. And then as the adult champion, also making sure that you are asking those guiding questions and making sure that those projects are actually doable. Right? Because we know none of us are perfect. Young people are doing these projects, just making sure that we're keeping everyone focused and moving forward. And again, that there's something feasible that they are working on. So that is the kind of concept and thought behind adult champions being co-pilots in this work. And so with that, I will pass it on to Karen to talk about Global Youth Service Day. Wrap us up here.
Great. Thanks, Nikki. So we wanted to leave you with a little bit of information about Global Youth Service Day and how you could participate. Global Youth Service Day is dear to our heart at YSA. It is one of 3 big days of service over the course of the year that we promote and encourage people to participate in. You'll see here the dates for both this year and next year. We try to be on the spot in terms of giving people good information that they can plan out their calendars for the year ahead as well. I will say that we recognize that it's Global Youth Service Day, but it's 3 days. And the story behind that is when we started Global Youth Service Day, it was on a Tuesday. And then we had people say to us, no, weekday doesn't work for us. We need a weekend day. So then we moved it to a Friday, Saturday. And then we had some of our Jewish partners say, no, that doesn't work for us. We need Sunday, which is why it became a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. But we also recognize that April is a busy month with lots of activities going on, sometimes weather issues. So we wanted to provide as much flexibility as well. So we really encourage people to organize and celebrate their project kind of whenever works best for them within the month around Global Youth Service Day, which is why you see Youth Service Month below that. We really, as I said, look at Global Youth Service Day as certainly not the only time of year that young people are serving, but a time to really highlight and recognize the good things that they do all year round and encourage year-round engagement. We know that, like I said, most people volunteer for the first time because someone asked them to, a coach, a parent, a friend, a mentor, a faith leader. So we really try to make this a time that all young people are asked to participate. If you go to the next slide. This is a map. On our website, we track where projects are happening. We also try to make it interactive so that people can see projects happening close to them. They can also see projects happening in the same issue that they are working on, and maybe that's halfway around the world and they can learn some things about how somebody else is working on that project. So we love it when people not only do projects, but share their stories with us. On the next slide, you'll see kind of 3 big ways that we encourage young people to think about their service on Global Youth Service Day. The middle one, we've talked a lot about today around using that LEAD ASAP framework to achieve one of the global goals. And that's a huge way that people celebrate Global Youth Service Day. But we also have looked at it in broader ways too, around also kind of what we call creating a culture of participation. And that means really kind of setting up systems and increasing capacity of local organizations to engage young people. So maybe instead of a project that's happening for Global Youth Service Day, there's a service fair where people can learn about opportunities to serve in their community. Or maybe there's an awards ceremony that recognizes the good things young people have done. There are lots of different ways to really kind of create that atmosphere and that really encourages and recognizes youth service. And then finally on the right side, you'll see that we also really, my dog's about to bark. Katie or Nikki, do you mind finishing this slide?
Sure, no problem. I know Nikki has Coco hopping in to say hi. So really the last kind of key area is thinking about when we say youth can be engaged civically, obviously through the service activities, but through traditional civic engagement by voting, whether we're registering new voters or educating new voters. One of our partners, Circle, just published or is getting ready to publish their report about the status of youth voter turnout for Tuesday's election. So we're definitely seeing youth wanting to focus on the kind of traditional civic sense as well. Obviously, we know a lot of that happens in the fall, but youth can be doing that year round because we know things around politics never sleep.
Thanks, Katie. I knew I should have kicked him out of the room before I started. On the last slide, you'll see some specific kinds of resources we have for helping people with their Global Youth Service Day activities. We have resources, and thanks, Nikki, for sharing that link in the chat. This is the link to the Global Youth Service Day specific page on our website, which is ysa.org. You'll see lots of resources to help you plan your activity, some of which we've highlighted on the call today. You'll see opportunities to post your activity like I shared on that map so that people can see it and be able to interact with it. And then finally, ways to promote your activity in the form of social media toolkits and suggestions for how to take great photos and media training for young people and kind of all kinds of ways to really encourage sharing great stories to make sure people know about them and can adapt and learn from them. So that's a little bit about Global Youth Service Day. And last but not least, we wanted to make sure that you had all of our information. These are our email addresses, our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook handles. Our website is ysa.org. So lots of these links, or all of these links we've been sharing with you are available there. And that's really kind of what we wanted to share with you today. I think we have a few minutes left. So Julie, if it's okay, we can take questions or comments that people have.
Absolutely, go ahead. Any questions either in the chat or feel free to turn your mics on and ask the great folks at YSA a question. I see Laura has raised her hand. Laura, go ahead.
Here. I was wondering, I'm at a small rural school. I would love to participate in Global Youth Day and we just recently implemented just for this year, a service requirement for graduation where starting with this freshman year, there's 25-hour service requirement. So I'm really excited for that. And I thought Global Youth Service Day would be a great opportunity for a huge group could that could volunteer that day. So I'm trying to think of how to arrange, buses to make sure every kid can get where we're going, how to connect with community organizations to make sure there's enough. We have about 200 students in our freshman class. So I guess I'm looking for, maybe some examples or some schools that do a school-wide service day or a grade-wide service day. If that's, I know it's doable. I think I've heard of places, but I just would love a way to connect with schools that are already doing something like that to see how are they pulling this off.
And I'm happy to start, I guess, on that one. So I will say, if you're interested in having conversations with folks or schools that are doing that, I'm happy to make sure that you get connected offline. I know they rely heavily on working with their community partners to make sure that there are, of course, activities and whatnot that young people can do. In some cases, they might even have funding to help support the transportation costs for young people to get to certain activities, or even looking at activities immediately around the school or even at the school that they can do. So there's different ways to go about that. I know if there are specific, I don't know if there's specific examples that you have in mind, Katie or Karen, that you want to uplift as part of this conversation.
Thinking back to some of the grantees that we've worked with in the past, I know one of our schools, they actually use some of their funding to cover bus passes. We've had others, and actually organize some organizations as well, where if one of their partner organizations is hosting a large event, but transportation is a challenge, which we know, as you mentioned, in some rural areas, in some urban areas where a lot of youth may be low income, they may be attendees at Title I schools, where they've used some funding to hire a bus to take students to a site. We've also seen in some cases where we always say meet youth where they're at. Sometimes that's been literal, where the project, as Nikki mentioned, maybe it happens at the school where the project is literally brought to the students, just to kind of facilitate that transportation component.
Thank you. That gave me a great idea. We could have some going out into the community, but some could be doing, tie blankets at school, or some other, maybe a meal preparation kits or something like that. That's cool.
I was going to say, like Nikki mentioned. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, so I was just going to say, I don't want to tie up too much time, because I know some other hands are raised, but I was curious if you'd already thought about how you were going to identify the different projects for that might be going on, or if that process had been thought about at this point, like young people were going to have input and just how that might come about.
No, it's just at the very beginning stage, but I do have a service club, and with about 60 members, student members. So we'll start there and brainstorm for the day. So yes, I don't want to take up time, but I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And I see that Kel has a hand up.
Yes, hello everyone. Hello, Katie. It's nice to see you on a face with the emails. I just wanted to make a comment. They said I could make a comment. And I just wanted to say that you all are amazing. Your resources are great. We did our youth Global Youth Service Day, where we had over 100 young people thanking gardeners who during the pandemic, they weren't thanked. So we gave them thank you bags and have breakfast for them and coffee just to say thanks for what they did. And just to see these young people so eager and wanting to serve, and had such a great attitude about it. And we were actually able to use part of our funding, because we're in Las Vegas and transportation is not that great and things are spread out. So we got to use ours not only for gas for them, because people came hours. It was like one gentleman, his family drove him an hour to come serve with us. And so we were able to use part of our funding for gas. And I asked Katie, I was like, gas prices are really expensive right now. And I even had some young people who came on their own on the bus. They were like, this is how they transport. This is how they go around. And so they were able to use bus passes, you know, to get to the location. So, you know, sometimes people say that young people, oh, they're not motivated to do this. But if you get that spark, that fire will glow and they'll show up. So I appreciate everything that you guys did. And I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those very kind words.
Any other thoughts or questions? I am going to put a link to the next session in the chat, but we have a minute or so before we need to wrap up. Any last thoughts or questions?
One thing I do want to highlight before we do break, I know throughout our conversation, we spoke about a number of the different ways that YSA works with our partners, youth, and ways that organizations and schools can work with youth. We talked a lot about training and resources, different days that we can activate youth, different ways that we can activate youth, the importance of recognition and recognition tools. But the other piece that YSA does is we offer different funding opportunities, both for youth as well as for schools, organizations, after school groups, kind of larger entities of that scale. So I do, because you're all joining us today, I do want to give you all a heads up that we are kind of moving into our youth grant application season. And this evening, we will officially launch and open the application for our 2023 Sodexo Stop Hunger Foundation youth grants. These are grants of either $250 or $500 for youth who are looking to lead projects that are aimed at ending childhood hunger in their community. So that will be again live on our website this evening. You can actually go ahead and check it out now. We published the application today, but if you do have any questions, my contact information will be on the grant page, and I'm going to drop the link to where it's hosted on our website into the chat box right now. Luis has a fire drill. That's never fun.
Well, that concludes our workshop. Thank you so much to our good friends at YSA, and I look forward to hearing more about your upcoming programming. Thank you so much.